They break into air together, all three of them gasping and choking, and the gorillas pull them to safety with hands that are surprisingly gentle despite their massive strength. When the last chimpanzee is across, the silverback releases his grip on the submerged roots and the gorilla chain dissolves, each individual finding their own way back to shore, exhausted and battered by the hours they have spent holding position against the flood. On the safe bank, two species who should be rivals by every law of nature and territory sit together in the rain, too tired for hostility, united by the simple shared experience of survival against odds that neither could have overcome alone. The chimpanzee alpha approaches the silverback, a meeting of leaders that should be confrontational, but is instead marked by a kind of mutual acknowledgement. They do not groom, do not touch beyond a brief contact of hands that might be gratitude, or might simply be exhausted. Recognition that the normal rules have been suspended and something new is being written in real time. She collapses in the mud, every muscle trembling, her lungs burning, her mind a strange mix of exhilaration and disbelief at what has just occurred. The mother she saved last approaches and grooms her carefully, thoroughly, while the infant she carried across the flood clings to her mother's chest and stares at her rescuer with dark eyes that will remember this, that will carry forward the knowledge that sometimes survival depends on bridges built between those who should be enemies. The storm passes by morning, the water recedes, and the island returns to its normal rhythms. But normal has changed. The territories are still distinct, the boundaries still real, but they are no longer absolute. Chimpanzees and gorillas still do not mix casually, still maintain their separate social structures. But they no longer react to each other's presence with automatic hostility. The rescue at the flood has created precedent, has demonstrated that cooperation is possible, that the rigid rules everyone assumed were laws of nature are actually just habits, patterns that can be broken when circumstances demand it. The weeks following the flood rescue bring subtle but profound changes to the island's social dynamics. The chimpanzee troop no longer avoids areas simply because gorillas are nearby, and the gorillas have stopped treating chimpanzee presence as an automatic territorial violation. They share riverbanks during the morning drink, maintain respectful distances but without the constant tension that used to mark such encounters. She finds herself at the center of this transformation without seeking it, marked by both species as the catalyst, the individual whose actions broke the old patterns and forced the creation of new ones. The chimpanzee troop's treatment of her shifts from grudging tolerance to something approaching respect, not for her strength or her status in the hierarchy, but for this strange ability she possesses to see possibilities that others dismiss as impossible. The alpha male begins to position her deliberately as a forward scout during foraging expeditions into disputed territories, using her presence as a signal to the gorillas that the chimpanzees come not for confrontation but for coexistence. It is an uncomfortable role, laden with risk, but she accepts it, because the alternative is a return to the isolation she endured after the snake incident, and anything is better than that. The gorilla troop, particularly the silverback, seems to recognize her specifically when their paths cross. There are no dramatic gestures of friendship, no grooming or vocal greetings. But there is an absence of threat displays, a relaxation of the hypervigilance that normally marks interspecies encounters. It is not alliance, but it is something, a foundation upon which further bridges might be built if circumstances push in that direction. Then those circumstances arrive in the form of the northern chimpanzee group, a larger and more aggressive troop that occupies the far side of the island and has been expanding their territory steadily southward. They number nearly 50 individuals, significantly larger than her own troop of 32, and their alpha is young and ambitious, the kind of leader who builds power through conquest rather than careful management of existing resources. The northern group has been aware of the changes in the southern territory, has heard through the complex communication networks that exist between chimpanzee troops about the unprecedented cooperation between chimpanzees and gorillas. Their interpretation of these events is not wonder, but weakness, a perception that the southern troop has become soft, has forgotten how to defend territory through strength, has allowed unnatural alliances to corrupt proper hierarchical aggression. They come at dawn on a day when the mist lies thick over the forest floor and visibility is limited to a few meters in any direction. Their approach is coordinated and silent until the moment of contact, and when they attack, it is with overwhelming force designed to shatter resistance before it can organize. The southern troop scrambles to defend, but they are outnumbered and caught by surprise. And within minutes, it is clear that this is not a territorial dispute that will be resolved through dominance displays and strategic retreat. This is an attempt at complete takeover, a war of elimination where the northern group intends to kill or drive out every member of the southern troop and claim the entire territory as their own. She finds herself in the thick of the fighting almost immediately. defending a cluster of juveniles who were caught in the open when the attack began. A large northern male comes at her with teeth bared, and she barely manages to dodge his initial rush, using her smaller size and her knowledge of the terrain to stay ahead of his superior strength. But she cannot run forever, cannot abandon the juveniles she is trying to protect, and when the male corners her against a massive tree trunk, she knows she has seconds before he closes the distance, and the fight becomes one she cannot win. A roar shakes the forest, deep and primal, and absolutely unmistakable. The silverback gorilla crashes through the undergrowth like a force of nature, drawn by the sounds of combat, arriving to find his territory's edge erupting in violence. He should stay out of this. Chimpanzee conflicts are not gorilla business, and interfering could make the gorillas targets of the northern group's aggression. But the silverback has watched the southern chimpanzees for weeks now, has seen them share space peacefully with his own troop, has recognized the female who saved his infant and later risked her life to help trap strangers. He has made calculations about alliance and debt, and the strategic value of neighbors who cooperate rather than constantly challenge borders. The silverback charges into the battle, and the effect is instantaneous and dramatic. The northern chimpanzees have never encountered a gorilla who actively takes sides in chimpanzee conflicts, and the massive silverback's presence throws their entire strategy into chaos. He does not kill, does not need to, his size and strength enough to scatter attackers with sweeps of his enormous arms, but his message is clear. The southern troop is under his protection. This territory is not undefended. The northern alpha makes a decision quickly, recognizing that fighting both the southern chimpanzees and an adult male gorilla is a losing proposition. He calls retreat, and his troop withdraws in disarray. Their overwhelming numerical advantage rendered meaningless by the intervention of a species that should have remained neutral. The battle ends almost as quickly as it began, leaving the southern troop battered but intact, their territory defended through an alliance that rewrites the fundamental rules of island politics. The silverback does not linger once the threat is gone, simply looks at the chimpanzee alpha with an expression that might be acknowledgement or warning or both, and then returns to his own troop. But the message has been sent and received. The gorillas and the southern chimpanzees are not merely tolerating each other, they are actively defending each other, creating a mutual protection pact that makes both groups significantly more secure against external threats. She sits among the recovered juveniles, breathing hard, checking them for injuries. They are frightened but unharmed, saved by her defense and the silverback's intervention. The chimpanzee alpha approaches her, and for the first time since she joined this troop, there is something in his eyes that looks like genuine respect, rather than grudging acceptance. She has been right. Her instincts, however strange and uncomfortable for others, have been right. The bridges she built have saved lives, have protected the troop, have created strategic advantages that pure aggression never could. The northern group does not give up after the first failed assault. They retreat to their territory and regroup, and over the following weeks they launch a series of raids,